I'm here with Michael Walker, and today we are discussing a very important topic. It's called internal projection, pattern of the psyche with devastating consequences. And so we're hopefully going to unpack this for you. We're going to jump into this idea of internal projection. So what does that mean? What's your definition of internal projection?
Internal projection is when the ego has a conversation with itself, basically, and thinks that it's having a conversation with its intuition or the unconscious or the soul, or what we call the instinctual consciousness. The reason that it's important, and yes, people are not going to get it. This is probably the second hardest thing to understand. And the first one is to understand what a malignant complex is, or a psychological complex. That's the first one that's the most difficult. This is the second one. And if you can navigate this, kind of like Dante's Inferno, with the help of a psychopomp, if you can navigate this part, you're well on your way to getting the relief and the meaning you're looking for and the vitality.
I think you're outlining underneath what you're saying is the actual structure of how complex works. It's like two opposing forces that are like battling with one another. There's this deep instinctual need to be seen and cared for. And then there's this other part of us that knows that that's not possible or can't happen. Yeah. And so it's trying to keep us safe. And so there's it's like, between a rock and a hard place, like there's no movement. And so that conflict is a complex.
It is a complex. And so that's cool that you said it, that you put it that way, because both are always happening. And that's also counterintuitive to people. It's hard for them to grasp. There is an instinct that says, I need to be loved and taken care of, and I need people in front of me so I can develop mirror neurons and I can develop skills in hunting and play. The instinct is pushing for that. And at the same time, the instinct has developed a complex to protect all of that until the organism is in a safer position to be able to deal with it. It does that by cutting off the overwhelming experience from cognition. So at the same time, the instinct is pushing to be found through anxiety, through symptoms, through life symptoms, relationship symptoms, physical symptoms, uncomfortable psychological symptoms. It's always pushing. That's the instinct saying, I want to be found. I'm pushing.
Right.
At the same time, the instinct has a complex that says, I am going to protect you at all costs, and I'm going to cut this off from you, and I will never stop cutting this off from you.
It's like the safety protocol it's like this automatic thing, because whatever happened to the person, there's a myriad of different examples of how these things form, but whatever happened, it needs to protect the individual from that danger.
From that experience.
So it's like an automatic thing that develops. So
and it's out of consciousness. So your ego cognition has no ability to perceive it, only as a qualia, a feeling, a symptom, or it's projected out onto another. Go somewhere other than it being you.
Yeah, and then what we have in the West especially is a whole culture kind of that is dedicated to that. Like the whole culture is an expression of that happening. So we have, on a more communal, like beyond just the individual, we have these examples in our, culture that are expressions of that. Like as one of the big, qualms you have is with psychology, like modern psychology, and how we treat and diagnose people, and we abstract them into diagnoses like ADD, BPD, all these just meaningless, non-emotional, non-narrative identities that then the individual who is perfectly fine with doing that because it keeps us dissociated from the emotion or the qualia, the feeling, we have no problem saying, okay, yeah, I'm ADD, that's fine. And then they give you a prescription, right? There's just this whole medical model that's just based on profit. And it doesn't offer the human any narrative or spirit or story or way, essentially, of connecting those two things that are in conflict.
The issue is that it's outside of cognition, and we will use cognitive behavioral therapy and double down on cognition to fix a lack of cognition problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so now you're just doing crazy making.
So I have an example, and I think this could probably help. Cause I just went through something with this yesterday with my wife, and it was a good experience because we really did get down to the nuts and bolts of it. We had this kind of meeting of those two halves of us, this emotional qualia part of us, and then in the context of a complex. So my wife, she's in London for a couple weeks, and she texts me all the time. And last night we were on the phone and we're talking, and she just very simply said, "Hey, she was feeling emotional. She'd been walking around London, and it's very romantic. So she's seeing all these, couples that are celebrating and traveling together. And so she's having all this, yearning for intimacy sort of thing and feeling like, and then suddenly she was like, why don't you text me as much as I text you?" Right. Immediately in that moment, this emotional pressure comes up in me, because it was as though I was in the past with other relationships or with my mom or whatever it is, where I'm not being enough and I fucked up or something, right? Like this part of me is trying to cut off that emotional feeling because it's like dangerous. And so I'm immediately, and I'm seeing this in the moment, but I can't even do anything about it because it's just like, it's happening automatically. I'm immediately like, well, babe, I mean, I'm doing all these things over here. I'm really busy. I love you. You know what I mean? It's like this kind of justification and projection onto her. Like, well, if you just understood me, you would be okay. So it's just this fear-based thing. And the whole conversation just started to devolve into this kind of zero-sum game. Like if I need to win at your cost, and then she needs to get something from me at my cost, sort of thing. It was just this very difficult thing. And, and then and it was basically, well, I just got to go to bed. And then the conversation ended. And I sat there for 20 minutes and I felt like this pattern that I've been in before, where I felt like it was on the verge of just complete ego collapse. Like, oh my God, I have totally fallen. And I felt that happening. And for some reason, and I think it's really an example of how this work works, is in that moment, I was like, what am I doing? I know what's happening. This is a total pattern, and it has nothing to do with her. It's not her fault. I'm responsible for my side. So I reach out to her and I text her. I was like, baby, I love you so much, and this is not your fault. I have this pattern. I reach out to her. We go into this conversation, and then suddenly she becomes aware of the fact that she's had patterns with relationships when she was in a long distance relationship with a man, and that she's had that pattern for many years. And then we get all the way down to the fact that her father wasn't around, right, as a child. Yeah. And that she's literally yearning for her father. So there's just this beautiful meeting of minds. And in that moment, when I reached out to her and I told her, and I realized what I was holding back in that moment, and it was this utter sense of failure. And that was the emotion I was holding at bay. It was so apparent that I was holding this back because of this utter sense of guilt and failure for having failed this feminine figure in my life. So my relating to the feminine was really just so challenged in that moment. And our relationship is perfect otherwise. I mean, we have such a loving and beautiful relationship. It's just in that moment, the complex was perfectly paired with hers in a way that the dynamic resulted in this kind of, battle of, if I lose, if you win, I lose. And if I win, you lose. And it just was the only way. And so it was really beautiful because we came through it, and it was like, when I finally said to her, like, hey, baby, I just want you to know that this is what's going on for me, and I love you so much, and I'm here for you, and I'm happy to text you more often if that's what you need. And she was like, well, that's all I needed, baby. And then she falls into this realization of what was really going on for her. So there was just this opening up of the ability to relate with each other again. And that opportunity is a direct result of this practice.
Once you know that there's something outside, meaning something that has been repressed, that's outside of cognition. Anytime we do something and an instinct isn't allowed to thrive in the way it wants to participate in the world, it's going to push back. Once you know that something's out there, then and only then you have the opportunity for your ego to take a position towards it.
Yeah.
So repression, the ego doesn't even know that the thing is on the outside. Doesn't even understand that it's outside of its awareness. And suppression is, I know it's there or something's there, but I'm going to take an adversarial position against it. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, yeah.
They're similar, but we do need, as we go, when we go deeper into complexes and internal projection, we need to know the difference between suppression and repression.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I see what you mean.
So when you tell an instinct, I'm not going to deal with you, it's going to double up its pressure.
Yeah, and in that moment, you know, when these things are happening, and I've been practicing this a lot, so it didn't really quite take hold, but I could feel the temptation, these thought forms forming around how to justify this suppression.
The ego is taking a position, an adversarial position. So for instance, let's say you have a seeking instinct that says, I need to get shit done. This is an opportunity that she is going when she's visiting England. This is an opportunity for me to get the seeking system online and to get my dopamine on and to get shit done. Right. And that instinct is demanding something. That instinct is demanding that with you. And so you make an ego position. I am going to do this. I do not care about the other instincts that are in the room. Her instincts. She probably has going back to what we talked about before. What's the anxiety, grief,
panic and grief.
Panic and grief. She has a panic grief instinct that says, I need someone to come and acknowledge that I exist. Right? Because you guys are aware enough that there's another thing out there that's being suppressed, you changed your ego position.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do, because after that, the instincts will go, thank you, and they'll work it out from there.
Yeah. It's
really not hard.
Yeah. The ego is being constantly adapted to the needs of the instincts, which are above and beyond and outside of the limitations of the ego. And they're pushing on us all the time. And the problem with the West right now is that we've completely inverted it. Yes. We're saying that the emotions are supposed to be subservient to my ego cognition,
right?
Which is never going to be possible. It's just it's a violation of natural law. So for something like an internal projection, let's say the conversation went haywire. Let's say I doubled down on my ego position and we were still in conflict today, right? Now my ego position, in order to keep that position, would have to justify itself constantly. And so when it looks out into the world and it sees symbols and narrative that are screaming, hey, this needs to be addressed, I'm interpreting it in a way that justifies my position rather than actually listening to the signals.
The ego has identified with the malignant complex and is now utilizing it. The internal projection is a really subtle thing the complex does, because when we live, like you said, we live in an egocentric world. You know, everything is based on the ego, the inversion that you said, that cognition is top down and it affects everything downstream from it to the instincts, where we believe that it's bottom up, that the instincts, the soul, the instincts are actually causing what we look at, what we're cognitive of, our states, right? It's picking relationships without us even knowing. When the ego can't take a position, the complex is fully activated. And the problem with the complex is that it has to stay alive, and it stays alive by feeding on the instinctual energy. That's why we don't have any energy wherever our particular complex is at. And it demands more and more. So like you said, the complex is actually telling the ego, look more and more to justify that, which requires more and more energy to do that. And you don't have energy to do anything else other than to spool into these these ruts or these cyclical loops with someone, these patterns keep forming. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring the ego and the instincts into the same room. And by doing that, we're hoping that when we're relating to other people, they're able to bring their instincts and ego into the same room. And that there's a feedback that's actually dynamic and moving towards something productive and efficiently, not a bunch of energy expended that you can't,
Right.
because, some part of that, when we deal with shame, when we feel shame afterwards, there's an exhaustion after a give and take like that. There's an exhaustion that takes place. And then we feel it as though kind of it's a shame function. Like, look how exhausted I am. Look, I can't even do anything. I can't even have a conversation.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that after that moment, like when I had that brief moment where we weren't on the phone together, I was like, I could tell, because in the past that pattern would have resulted in like 4 days of like no energy.
Yep.
And that I'm just so grateful that I was able to, however, through this work is able to really connect the dots. And there was a communication between these parts of me that the ego was actually able to change its position. Because when I came back and I made the effort, it freed up so much energy. It was like, the rest of my day was set free. I could function. I could go right back to normal. I was okay.
And once your ego takes a position, meaning it brings the projection back to itself, right? And the instinct back to itself. The complex doesn't have any instinctual energy now to feed on. So it weakens simultaneously as you're getting stronger. And you are getting more energy because now efficiency is now online.
A lot of the malignant complexes I had resulted in certain vices as I was growing up, like addiction patterns, porn, attention seeking, all of these things that I would do to get more energy to continue in that way. And, as I begin this healing journey, and I realized after so long of participating in that kind of behavior that it doesn't work. Like there's a recognition, at least as far as my ego is concerned, that this isn't working. So you kind of open yourself up to the risk of feeling these things that you've dissociated from for so long. Along the way, it's kind of like whack-a-mole, because that complex is still like, whoa. I need to, it's like, it's almost trying to utilize all these things. And it's so difficult because of how many ways the intellect can justify certain behavior, or just say, oh, it's no big deal. You can do this. It's fine. You know what I mean? And it seems so small and inconsequential. You look around at the world, you're like, well, everybody else is doing it. So it's like, I'm not as bad as them, or whatever it is. It's like all these things that come up. And what's so devastating is what we cut ourselves off from through this behavior. It's like, we almost feel safer in this small little piece of shit container. It feels like there's no risk. Meanwhile, it's like that meme. What's that meme? Dog with house on fire. It's this meme here. With the little, this is fine sort of thing as the house is burning around you. And it's so hard because while you're in the middle of it, it's so devastating. And I say that just because if anyone's listening, like the motivation, it is so much better. Like what we're missing out on, this sense of wholeness, this sense of energy, coherence, this sense of all of this stuff. It's not a little thing. It's a really big deal.
We are taking a position when we see the dog in the middle of the flames. The dog is not taking a position against or for the flames. The flames do not exist in the dog's cognition.
Right.
So I'm going to segue into how a malignant complex uses internal projection. The only way to truly understand the flame, to know that there's a flame there, even though you've been cut off from the perception of it, is really the heat of the flame.
Right. And that's the shame, that's the guilt that you're describing.
Or the skin's on fire. There's arthritis that's on fire. There's relationships that are on fire. A house literally is on fire.
Resentment.
Yeah, if it's low key enough, but a really high level of resentment is going to come out in passive aggressive behavior. It's going to come out in it could be weight gain, which you have to burn a lot of heat for that. It could be a number of things, but there'll be a symptom, but you won't know for a long time about the symptom. It'll just be, oh, my skin has a rash, it's acting up, or I'm getting an outbreak of acne, or I have arthritis, it's acting up, or it's just, oh, that woman's starting to fight with me, or that man is starting to fight with me again, or that coworker is starting to fight. It's always outside of us, out of cognition. And yet these are giant instinctual symptoms that are saying there's a fire there, everything is burning down, right? If you're not aware of it, that instinct will push harder and harder. It'll get hotter and hotter until you have to acknowledge it. If you have a type of mind that might be able to intellectualize that, meaning you've done a lot of self-help, you've done a lot of Jungian psychology, you've done a lot of metaphysical, religious, kind of spiritual help, things like that. Okay. When you said earlier, the complexes are sneaky, they'll tell you, they'll talk to you and they'll tell you things, right? That's internal projection. It's the ego on crack. The ego is looking in to its inner self, where the complex has divided cognition. It's looking in, but when it looks in, it's only looking for ego cognition. And the flame is not cognitive like the ego is cognitive. It's conscious, but it's not cognitive. So it literally becomes a mirror and of itself. When you are having any internal dialogue with yourself, or you've imagined an entity, or even if it's a real entity, you're still not getting to the core issue.
Yeah, I have a guy in the men's group. Recently I shared kind of something with you where it's very apparent that he's on the verge of kind of starting to try to deal with these things, right? Because he's been overwhelmed, right? He's got all this instinctual energy that's frustrated. It's spilling over. He breaks down and weeps a lot in the men's group. He's very hyper emotional. He goes from being present to crying, present to crying. It's very unstable structures. It's a lack of architecture, lack of ego personality, like lack of containment. And, one of the things he had texted, he had missed one of these meetings that we had. And he immediately said, oh, it's all good because I became the living embodiment of love. So I'm okay now. And it felt like, okay, you're sitting there like you're looking at the dog in the fire.
We do want to have an experience of the flame, of the dog, right? We do want to have let's say the flame burning around is love. Okay, that's fine. But it needs to be an instinctual need. That type of abstraction is probably internal projection, meaning he's had a lot of information, cognitive information about religious idealism regarding love, or theoretical frameworks about love, or whatever model, but there's a model, and it's more important that it's being articulated than it is to see what is behind the emotion. It wants to identify with the love, that for whatever reason the ego is okay with that, but it's completely unconscious of the inflation, and it's completely unconscious of the breakdown of ego. It's dissociated literally with these emotional abreactions or regressions, and the crying. It completely does not understand it's doing that. That's just more love, right? More right, and so that isn't that. So that should tell you that there's a complex afoot. And the complex is using internal projection to talk about that, because you'll end up spooling if you keep doing that with anyone that has internal projection. You'll get absolutely nowhere but other than just a bunch of platitudes.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an intuitive kind of thought. It's like there's nothing I can really say to him that would help.
Well, for instance, let's do something as benign as with the situation with you and Ashley. You had mentioned that there, it's connected to this, and it's connected to a childhood wound that she had. That is on the border of internal projection, right? Because it's got this big logic. It's got this big, the cognition, ego cognition likes it. Mm-hmm. You can talk about it. For her, it is the experience of getting an endogenous opioid that makes her feel okay, because that's what the panic grief system is the endogenous opioid. She's wanting the experience of endogenous opioids, not this happened in my childhood. That instinct is looking for action now. It's not looking to understand what happened because her father didn't give her that when she was 3.
It's the interesting thing is the conversation, before we even got into the father stuff, right? It was the expression of me actually reaching out and showing her that I care enough to show her my feelings about her.
What happened was when you took a different position and saw her, the instinct was fulfilled and she can get the feeling. Mm-hmm. Now you guys can take ego positions of, that was a lack of that I've had a long time that never found a place. The ego can take it. That's an ego position, but based on a qualia.
Okay.
The qualia is what led it.
So we're honoring that natural order that it's instinctual consciousness first, or soul first, right? Emotion first.
Yes. Yeah. We're not, the instincts want to lead and are leading, but when you've dissociated, they need to lead the cognition, the ego cognition back. And so there's a difference between the ego cognition telling what the thing is and just being led to where the qualia is actually at outside of cognition. So we can look at the symptoms of body sensations, relationship symptoms, however you want to look at it. And we can look at imagery. We can look at words. We can look at stories that are meaningful to us, or in dreams, or the stories that we find ourselves in, right? Or stories that pop up like a movie, or a horror movie, or a novel, or a comic book, or a video game. These all have stories. They have imagery and they're telling us something. But what we do is that we say that story is the actual thing. Mm-hmm. Not that it's symbolizing a type of, there's something there. Will you look? So that the instinctual consciousness is bringing an ego, or is bringing an image and a story that maybe talks, right? But it's bringing something, so you at least have something to identify. Your ego has something to identify. But then it's your ego's job to go, okay, I've identified there's something that may be there. Now let me see what it has to say.
Right. Now let me listen. Let me shut off and kind of receive.
Yeah, but if you don't, then you'll just turn it on and it'll reflect back it'll start talking to you the way you would talk to yourself. Mm-hmm. And you have not entered any different field of that's outside of cognition. I can't stress this enough.
This is Dreamwork. I mean, this is why we do Dreamwork, right? This is it. Yeah. Because dreams are direct communication from the part of us that's trying to resolve this dissociation. And it's giving us information.
And it's giving you imagery and narrative that is completely for you.
Right.
It's uniquely designed for you.
Right.
The signal to noise is so high.
Yeah.
Where if a video game comes up or a random symptom comes up, there's so much noise in that signal. If you know what you're doing, that will work too. But the dreams, the signal is
yeah. It's so hard. And I don't doubt that I speak for most people, especially in the West, for us to change the way we've thought. I mean, these patterns, these neurotic patterns, these habits of thought that we've just so deeply ingrained in the West that are not serving us. And anybody with a pair of eyes can look around and see that things aren't working very well. We've actually regressed. We're not progressing forward anymore. It is so difficult for them to kind of to move from this very hardcore materialist, if only what I can measure exists sort of thinking into a realm of, because there's a bit of, and it's so obvious to me now that I've started to taste it because I've been able to recover some of this gnosis, this meaning making part of me, right? It's so difficult for us to go to this dependency on the cognition because of everything that it's serving, like everything that it's doing for us. It's keeping us safe from all these perceived threats and danger as a result of these traumas. And so we dissociate entirely out of safety, and everything that is meaningful and would bring us the kind of thing that we're actually looking for is happening outside of that. But there's just such a resistance to anything that's not hard enough, like material enough for us to grab onto, like the idea of having faith or moving through, like understanding something intuitively or heart-based. Well, and a good way to break that is like the last time we watched a movie and it moved us. That was speaking to that part of us. But you're going even further, saying that the fact that it moved you is saying something specifically about you.
It's enough.
It's enough. It's like, that is the reason we are moved by artwork. It's like we often say, this is what I've done, right? And many people I know is we watch a movie. It's like, that's such a good movie. They did such a good job with that. Wow, look at them. They don't say, wow, look what that's saying about me. And what information in it which moved me emotionally is present in me, and how can I find myself there? That is the real beauty of art. I mean, some people know, many people know this. This isn't like, I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I just know for me, like moving from this totally dissociated cerebral narcissism, fucking, materialist kind of view to going toward that is the riskiest thing. And like all of these defense mechanisms build up, like, oh, that's gay, or oh, that's hella beta or feminine, or what, all these things, all these defense mechanisms. And it's just wild, the contrast, because once this starts to come back online, you see an entire vast universe of information that you've just completely been missing out on, things that are not easily explainable. And that's what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to find a way to communicate to the Western mind what they're missing. And it is we're doing it. It's tough, but that is the challenge even within our men's group, because only the people that wind up there, there's a reason they wind up there. But then as soon as they get there, they're like, oh, I know what's going on. I don't need this. And it's like, whoa, we're watching that. We're looking at the dog in the fire, and we're like, it's such a challenge. It's such a challenge.
Well, remember too, when everything that you just said, that the complex is made through dissociation, right? And it's its primary weapon. It also can flood you with emotion, which is yet another dissociation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. One of the moves that we have to do is the complex will go, oh, you're getting close. So the men enter the group, right? And very quickly, the people that are in the group are going to understand that there is something afoot right outside of their cognition.
Right.
There's something there, because that's what we're doing. We're purposely doing that.
Well, we have antennas for it. I think naturally as humans, we're designed to detect it. I mean, we kind of always are.
That's Jack London's To Build a Fire, where he's freezing to death in the short story. He fantasizes about killing his dog. He calls the dog over to him. The dog is apprehensive. He senses something wrong about why the man is calling him over. The man stands up, and this reassures the dog, and he slowly makes his way towards the man. The man lunges towards him and is unable to kill him because his hands are frozen. This is a perfect analogy of the man as a malignant complex and the dog as the intuition. This is why it's important for us to follow the intuition, because the man in the story, as the malignant complex dies of hypothermia, the dog is able to run to the safety of Sulphur Creek, where he can find community and warmth.
Wow. I thought you were going to say they cuddle up and keep each other warm, but
yeah, but this is a complex. The complex is utilizing every bit of energy to stay alive, and it's trying to override our ability to stay conscious with the intuition. That the complex is kept outside of cognition. Well, it's intuition that does that, and this happens a lot when I do dream work with people. They literally will tell me, "This feels right. I just don't know. I can't put it into words why this feels right." If for the first time their ego is acknowledging through intuition and through a quality of experience, is realizing there's something outside of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to put it into words because it's not cognitive. It's conscious.
Right.
It has a quality. It has emotion. It has feeling.
Yeah.
It understands things on a much broader level that our limited ego bandwidth is not even able to take. So intuition is the beginning part of that. The second part is that once the complex knows that the ego is aware, it will send a strong emotion that it's been defending you against.
Oh yeah,
then you go. So this is with the men in the group, right?
Right.
Then all of a sudden they, well, I'm going to make you weep because of your, of your despair, or your.
Well, and dude, the patterns for that kind of behavior. As soon as a man comes in and he starts doing that in front of the group, I know he's never going to show up again.
We have to figure out how to stop that, because what happens is that, and see, I'm able to do this in the dreams. If you in group work, we can get better at it.
It's challenging because there's a few things going on. Like, okay, so first the guy's emoting. So for many men in the group that have a difficult time emoting, that's actually, it's juicy. They're like, oh my God, like, look at this person's actually finally conveying themselves. And then you're like wanting to put a stop to it. And these guys are like, how dare you? And then the guy's like, oh my God, I can't believe you, and it's like, no, we're trying to protect you. And I have ways, like I've been working on that because it's very challenging, because I'm like, I don't want you to get an emotional hangover, and we want to help you co-regulate. So let's take some of this off your back. You don't have to do, you know what I mean? You don't have to help. You don't have to fall apart in front of us. You're a valuable person, and your, who you are matters, sort of thing. But in the context of remaining present and calm, and not having this big overwhelming reaction to where you have this emotional hangover the next day and you never show up again.
There's nothing wrong with emotion. Obviously, the instincts are speaking through emotion. That's its primary tongue. But it's the ego cognition is not there. The complex has turned that on, and at the same time is only flooding X amount of emotions, and there's no cognition to understand what it's actually doing. There might be an identification with that. Well, like, I'm just emotional, or an internal projection. I am now expressing myself the way, males have not been able to. And now I'm in touch with my, my inner self, and now I'm able to emote these things, and completely dissociated from the actual, what the complex is trying to do, and reshame, flood, regress, all those type of things. And what we really should try to do is, so this is where I was headed for. So this is a good segue. The complex is based on dissociation. Our answer for the ego not to get wrapped up and overwhelmed by it or over identifying with it is by using a type of dissociation where we disidentify with the emotion. And we can help someone disidentify with the emotion. Because remember, they're identifying with it. And then when you hear other people, they're getting that complex is getting them to over-identify with the emotion.
Yeah.
It's not the emotion. We need the cognition in to make a stance against the complex.
Yeah, it is. That's an interesting thought, because I do see, some of the things that have come up in these men's group is like, we will talk about the emotion as though it's a thing other than they are, right? Like we almost acknowledge, like, this is an instinct. This is a part of our makeup, but it's like, it's spilling over. It's overwhelming. It didn't have a place to go, sort of thing. And we kind of start talking about, I don't know, maybe not, maybe I think in some ways it's almost like I'm trying to justify the way we've approached it as though it does fit that model. But I think I'm learning what you're saying. I think that this is important, because these are the things that, that are able to, when without these barriers, those emotions kind of spill out and project onto the group in a way that almost like each individual that receives it has their own interpretation in a way that almost triggers their own complex. It kind of spreads, right? These things spread around.
It's a virus.
It's a virus.
Complexes are viruses.
Yeah, it can be really tough.
This is the compassion and the work to disidentify, right? Because when a virus gets into a cell, a virus is not a living organism.
Mm-hmm.
When it gets into a cell, it takes over the cell.
Mm-hmm.
But it's feeding on the life of the cell. If the cell over-identifies with the virus, then you end up doing stuff like cutting the cell out instead of understanding that the virus needs to be dealt with. The virus is not your cells. Your cells, once the virus is no longer there, it can't feed. The cell will go back to being what a cell is and not being taken over by the intelligence, the semi-autonomous intelligence of the virus. And that's what we're doing when someone is getting possessed, or the complex is turning on these giant emotions. Even with the other people in the group, we're disidentifying, which is the removal of the, which is so we're using dissociation against dissociation.
Interesting.
So what I do is if I need to, I will. I think if some ego position is being taken anywhere by anyone that is actually seeing clearly where the complex is and where the ego isn't, it does help. But you have to, what I'm more interested in, if I can get, it's not difficult. If I can get you to describe, so this is where, all complexes are hypnosis. You're hypnotizing yourself. Mm-hmm. That's what a complex is. That's why you can't remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have long-term memory and short-term memory, right? That long-term memory we can't remember until we get into a state that turned it on.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's just so much bandwidth and it has to go into the back. So that's our autopilot. That you get in the car, you drive from point A to point B. You're not micromanaging every move of the car, but it's on autopilot. When I go, okay, you're crying right now because love is overtaking you, or I just got this big these big feels about when, I finally, my mom is now saving me, or my dad is whatever. And the complex is going to say, okay, you want to play this game? I'm going to make you very aware of why I've been protecting you, what I've been protecting you from.
Mm.
And so what I'm saying is now the ego is going to be completely identified with, oh, I don't want to know that. No. Or I am love, or whatever the weird shit is.
Yeah.
If I say, wait, hang on a minute, I'm not going to let you take over the whole environment here. Can you tell me what is that emotion? Tell me what image is coming up with that emotion. Tell me, is there any body sensations? Tell me what you're experiencing right now. We need to really know this deeper thing that's happening. Can you do that? As soon as they're able to start that process, they are looking, in order to do that, they have to look at themselves. That is the definition of dissociation.
Yeah. Yep. I see.
And I'm doing that all the time, but no one sees that I'm doing it.
Yeah. What an interesting idea. Because I could see that in order to perceive the self, you have to not be the self for a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
we're using dissociation to fight dissociation. Now the complex cannot control the ego. Now the ego is taking a position. And if we are using compassion, if we're using compassion and love, we're also taking a position and bolstering, co-regulating their ego position to actually, instead of over-identifying, or, which is internal projection, or suppressing it. Now, okay, this is uncomfortable. Now I need to suppress it, be mad, be angry, have other people come and save me. These are all suppressive techniques. Now, when we're all in the room and we're looking at it, how am I going to relate to it instead of be adversarial towards it?
Mm.
Now the instincts go, we got it from here. Thank you, brother. We got it from here. And you see it. You see it when we do it in a dream. You see it when it's done right. You see it with you and Ashley. You see, if you give it enough, if the ego can take a position, can be in the room and not get overwhelmed or over-identify with that position, all of a sudden the instincts will be able to start to turn on things and to give you access to vitality, emotion, different processes that you did not have before. And your ego naturally knows how to be in a dynamic relationship with the instinct. It knows how to do that. What we're talking about is, why isn't it doing that? We're not talking about teaching people how to do something they naturally know how to do. We're trying to remove the things that are inhibiting that natural process.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So kind of a good rule of thumb, like, when we get into these circumstances and everybody knows what they feel like, holy shit, I'm here again. Here I am again. Those are the opportunities.